Oh, well, are you ready now?
We're gonna get started. We can continue on, but we're gonna get started.
Okay. Um, so yeah, at least, well, pandemic was 2020, and this was before the pandemic.
Yeah,
Um, and when did you start coming to Panera? Or were you part of the Panera after we went to Zoom?
before that,
Well,
I'm not absolutely sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
All right.
I, I only came there a few times.
Right. Um, I think we're ready to go. This
Okay.
is These Old Farts, otherwise known as Adventures in Technology. The panel today is Chuck Beauregard and myself, Robert Krieg. And we got a bunch of topics to get into, so why don't we get started? Uh, Chuck, you wanted to talk about January 6th?
Well, before I get started on January 6th, I'd like to give a little background for my appearances on these programs, which have been going on for, I think, at least 6 years. I was approached by a fellow who was running a program at the Reading Library. He happened to also be running the same program at a different date in Burlington. And he said to me when I came into that particular meeting, which usually had about 30 plus people at, he said he wanted to speak to me before I left the meeting. And I said, "Oh, what kind of trouble am I in now?" But I got to over to talk to him, and he said he had this other group in Burlington, and he thought they needed a conservative voice. And he said, "I'm not sure would want to do this, but thought I'd pass it out there." And so I tried to do my best over the times that I've been on these programs. And we do a program on Wednesday mornings, 3 to 5 of us, that has nothing to do with this particular program, on general topics also. And it's been interesting, and I'm glad I've been part of this. So, anyways, that's my introduction on how I got involved in this program. Bob and I didn't know each other prior to my calling him after being encouraged to do so. And I think been able to keep a friendship in spite of many differences. Anyways, I mentioned Bob wanted to know if I had some subjects that I would like to speak about, as well as he's going to speak about. Uh, Bob chose one of the topics that I mentioned to him that would be willing to talk about, and that's January 6th. Most everybody has heard about, has some awareness of January 6th, I hope, at this point. But I'm curious whether or not, and I can't get that answer tonight, obviously, from everybody, but I'm curious what people may have heard about some other things since in the last 6 months, last 2 years, because I've come across a few things that I'm not sure has been well publicized. First off, there was a denial. I got three things. First off, there was a denial by the FBI that there were no FBI agents on January 6th in the gathering. They recently announced within the past 10 days that, in fact, there were 274 undercover agents. Again, they didn't.
Uh,
Hello?
adventures,
Hello?
Adventures in Technology again. Uh,
So apparently there were approximately 274 undercover agents. They didn't disclose what they did, if they did anything, but there's I think that's a big lie they were trying to perpetuate. Secondly, there was a woman that was killed that was part of the group by the name of Ashley Babbitt. She was shot by a police officer who said she was attempting he was threatened by her, although she did not have a weapon. She was trying to break in through a door, and without any warning, he shot her and she died. Uh, Recently, Judicial Watch, which is a conservative organization that I've been a member with for many years, has sued the U.S. government. And recently, the Babbitt family, particularly her husband, was awarded $4.97 million in personal damages for that incident. And apparently, there's not being any penalties lodged against this particular individual. And third, I saw a program recently which went over all the taping that was being done while this incident was going on. And there's a fellow by the name of Harry Dunn. He's a black police officer who wrote a book, and the name of the book is I can't remember what I wrote down the book, but anyways, he wrote a book on what he did and so forth. And unfortunately for him, reviewing all the tapes shows that he lied many, many times on what his activities were doing. He made himself sound like a big hero. He went before a hearing of Congress, of the Democratic Congress that they put together for the hearing on it, and he lied left and right on these things. So I'm a big follower of a fellow by the name of Glenn Beck. Many people may have heard of him. He's a very conservative speaker. He has his own program based out of Texas, and he hired a private investigator who did a lot of background checks on things. And I have a program that I watch on a regular basis that he's on that you can access into it. Unfortunately, you do have to pay for that, but he does show up on YouTube. You can get onto YouTube and you can access various parts or full of his programs for nothing. So I'm not sure how many people have heard of any of these three things, but I wanted to pass on that it's not a dead issue. It's still something that, unfortunately, things drag on forever and ever, it seems, in almost every category. And it would be nice to see this thing get wrapped up at some point. Anyways, that's my my spiel about January 6th for the moment.
Okay, some responses. I heard the number 274 FBI agents, and it wasn't from the FBI as I remember the number coming out. I would have been very upset if there were no FBI agents in the crowd, because they're undercover and they're a source of information about what's actually going on internally, because the stuff we saw didn't really describe how they got there. For example, there were several groups that were the ones who actually went in and attacked the Capitol. One group went in with climbing gear. They just happened to have it. They had gone out to have a picnic in Washington, and they brought climbing gear with them and saw an opportunity. Somebody in one of the upper windows of the Capitol was waving, saying, "Come on up." So that's how it worked out. I'm being sarcastic, and I apologize.
Well, I want to interject, Bob, that
Sure.
there's no way at this point that either you or I know if any of those people doing some of those activities were in fact FBI people doing to incite things to begin with. Well, I just put it on the table.
Okay. Most of the people who did the obvious things on TV, because a lot of this was on TV, were indicted and in many cases convicted of crimes. if they were FBI agents undercover, it's unlikely they would have been convicted and gone to jail.
Well,
So
I'm going to pick on you for a second.
sure,
You said many of these people were indicted, meaning that there were some that were not.
yeah, there
Uh,
were a couple that were not,
well,
and
maybe the ones that weren't convicted were some of the FBI.
it could be,
I know.
but
I don't
that's
know. I don't know
yeah.
either.
I and yeah, it's conceivable. The real issue, I think, is not that there were FBI agents in the crowd. As I said, I would be very disappointed if there weren't at least some just to keep track of what was happening. The
Well,
question is, were they the
first thing that
ones who were trying to gin up the crowd and attack the police and attack the building? And
Well, I got to interrupt for
yeah,
a second. Right at the bat, the thing that bothers me is that, again, the head of the FBI lied to the general population, saying there were none in the crowd.
actually, I don't
And
remember
so,
him saying none.
well, I'll find the information for
Okay,
you.
please do, because
Okay.
I really don't remember him saying none. And as I
Okay.
said, if he did say none and was right, I think he wasn't doing his job. Um, I think he might have said none of them were involved uh, in the attacks on the police, etc. That's would be my guess, but you're going to look that up and let me know. Ashley Babbitt was in the had uh, stormed into the Capitol with a large group of people
When
and
you
had
have,
come up to the gallery and was
did you
forcing.
see her? I got to interrupt. Did you see her storm in there? She walked in there very gently
Okay, she
and was
walked.
actually, and she actually is almost like she was escorted in there as many other people were. The police stepped aside and let all these people, almost all these people, just walk right in.
Well, let's go back to that. There were at one point the Capitol Police said, try once the Capitol had been breached and the initial opening of the Capitol doors was done by the people who had climbed in to the building, and they opened up the doors. Police had nothing to do with that. After that, the Capitol Police claim that trying to keep the crowd, which was rushing in, several thousand people, uh, would not have worked, so they basically stepped aside. When Senator Johnson from Wisconsin claimed that these people were just acting like tourists, going around, looking around, pointing out stuff, it's kind of amazing that tourists generally don't take a dump on somebody's desk. Tourists don't chase after um, congressmen and senators, which they did. Harry Dunn, if I remember correctly, there was at one point, the senators had gone off somewhere and the crowd was chasing them. And Dunn showed up and said, oh, they went this other way. And the crowd went the way Harry Dunn had suggested. Whether that makes him a hero or not, he effectively, potentially saved a whole bunch of lives. So, what he lied about, I never heard that he was even accused of lying, much less that whoever it was is claiming that he lied. I'd be interested to see what lies he told or was accused of telling.
Well, I'm going to put a challenge out for you
Okay.
so that at some point in the near future, hopefully, you and I can get together to watch the video that I have that
Okay.
shows what I've been talking about.
I, I'll take you up on that. I will note,
Okay.
by the way, that a week or two after January 6th, there was supposedly, and I have not been in a position to check this, supposedly there were a whole bunch of people in the middle of the country who didn't know what anybody was talking about, had never heard or seen any of the videos that the people on the East Coast and West Coast saw of people attacking the police and doing a variety of things. You know, they took the shields and were beating them with it. They put, was it pepper spray? No, beer spray in the face of several people. One guy was caught in a door
Do
and
you know
almost crushed.
Do you know the police were doing that back to them?
The police were not holding a line and maybe advancing a little bit on occasion to try to push people back, which was their
No,
job.
I'm saying that they were spraying them also very early on.
May well be. So, in other words, if the police do something, then the crowd can do the same thing, because there are a number of people who, at one point or another, have been accused of crimes against regular police, and the regular police were in fact doing similar things. When
Okay,
the
I don't
police
want to cut us short, but we've been on this for about 15 minutes.
Okay, well, I did want to
So,
talk about Ashley Babbitt a little bit. She was, in fact, breaking into a house gallery. I believe it was a house gallery, and the police in the gallery were responsible for protecting those people. The noise, the shouting, etc., the fact that the crowd was being violent. I don't remember if there was a warning shot or not. I don't think there was.
not.
I don't think there was.
Do you,
But
do you recall that there were 4 police officers standing in front of where she tried to enter, and all of a sudden before she attempted to enter, all 4 of them just walked away from that area. Did you see the clip of that?
No, I did not.
Okay, you'll have to see that.
Okay, I'm looking forward to. I will note that the congressional committee, not the January 6th committee, but the one afterwards, after the Republicans took control, put together a film of what was going on and left out almost all of the violence. So I'm wondering if that's the film that you're talking about.
No, not to my belief.
Okay.
Not to my understanding.
I don't know what your film is, so I can't comment anymore. No. All right, you wanted to move on to something else. I'll give you one that we might actually agree on.
Okay.
What's going on with Gaza right now?
Okay.
I am very pleased, for a variety of reasons, that it appears that, at least for the moment, there will be a ceasefire. It hadn't started as of when I was coming into to the studio, and that the hostages will be, or the living hostages will be released, and aid will go into Gaza. I think that's very positive in almost every respect, and based on what little I know, I think that Donald Trump has to be given at least some credit for making it happen. I don't know if it'll go any further than where it is right now, for a variety of reasons. Yeah?
I have some degree of skepticism myself of whether or not all this stuff is going to. I know I heard a few days ago that they were going to release the prisoners. I thought they said this past Saturday. Now that last I heard earlier tonight was President Trump saying it's either going to be Sunday or Monday they're going to be released. It just seems like things keep getting pushed, and I know it's a delicate situation and lots of people involved, but it just makes me a little anxious to see that this is hopefully this is going to be taken care of. But I'm glad to see you be willing to give some credit to efforts by Trump.
Right. My problem with Trump is he's a bully, and I personally, as an individual, hate, I use the word deliberately, bullying, not only bullying against me, but bullying in general. Whenever I see it, I react, I say poorly to the situation. But I also admit there are times, particularly in the short term, where bullying can be a useful tactic. The question is long term. I mean, I'm 81, so I've seen a lot of long term. And I think that long term bullying tends to be negative. The net result over time is if it's based on bullying, then things will go south at some point in a bad way. But I want to give some credit to the fact that at least for the moment, things are better than they were. So
I join in your words on that part myself.
Given what we've seen over the past, 10 months? I know in the past you have said that there are times when you don't like what Trump says.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean by the 10 months.
Well, since he's been back in office.
Oh, okay. Okay.
January 16th, whatever it is.
Okay.
Looking at the things he has tried to bully his way through, do you think that it's negative, net positive or negative? Net. I mean, again, individual things work or not work.
I'd like to talk about that a little bit in a different context when you're finished.
Well, I'll use another example of bullying. Sending military to Democratic-run cities, particularly cities that are Democratic and have African-American mayors, saying they are horrible places, nobody can be safe, etc., etc. That's extreme language. But one of the things that really bothers me is a couple of days ago in Chicago, there was a apartment complex. And at one point in the middle of the night, ICE, I assume it was ICE, went in, smashing down doors, dragging people out of their homes with zip-tied hands, including children, by the way, including people who were naked, putting them into seclusion for multiple hours. And oh, by the way, at least some of the people that this was done to were U.S. citizens. And most of them were in the country, whether they had come in illegally or not illegally, without documentation or not.
Isn't that if they came in without documentation or permission, isn't that illegal?
It is a civil crime. It is the same crime as if you cross the street in the middle of the street rather than at a corner. It's a civil crime. It is not a crime for which you should be beaten up, dragged out of your home, separated from your family and children without access to legal counsel, which is what happened in this Chicago thing. To my knowledge, and I keep looking, I haven't found, maybe you have, there was no warrant for any of these people. Certainly not a warrant that required somebody to go in and smash down doors and throw things around, etc. Those people who were U.S. citizens. I know they identified two after the fact. I would think have a legal case.
Well, my response to that, Bob, is that if you said something about this a few days ago, and I never had heard anything about it at that time, and I did research later that same day, which was yesterday, and I did find an article in reference to that, and it, for the most part, it referenced what you just said, but for the most part, I say for the most part because I'm not sure. At this point, I don't know if, in fact, they had a reason to do what they did. If they didn't have a legitimate reason, then I have an issue with that. And so I think if, in fact, they did it without some evidence of an issue, then I think some action, some penalties, something should be done to whoever made those commands. So I think until we know more about that story, and I haven't heard anything else about it personally, and so I don't know what led to that, why they did what they did, and so I prefer we just kind of leave it on the back burner till we find some more evidence.
Well, I think that if after 5 days nobody's bothered to explain why, that they don't want to explain why. They just want to get away with doing it.
Well, you might be right, but I don't know.
It's a little frightening because if they can do it there, why can't they do it in Burlington? Why can't they do it at my house?
Well, I have to believe they had some reason, whether it was correct or not. They had something that made them believe somebody felt that was the action they had to take.
Okay.
I don't know if that was correct action or was it overreaction. Again, they're getting a lot of heat from people attacking them or attempting to attack them. I don't know. And so that's why I have a hard time commenting any further on it without more knowledge.
If you don't have a warrant and you can do it,
yeah, I'm not aware that they need warrants for all these things.
I would hope they do.
Well, I don't know.
Because otherwise, what's to stop them
sure? Are you 100%? Are you 100% sure they need warrants?
Unfortunately, I am not a lawyer, so I don't know that. But everything I've read says
you can hope all you want, as I can hope also that if they were required to have warrants, I would hope they would have had them. I'm just not sure if in the situation they are, whether they do need actual warrants. So we need to find that out.
All right. Well, another thing on our list, because I have been looking to find why there was justification for doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. I've had a couple of topics. Your turn.
Well, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about maybe some topics and everything they have. I have a book I purchased probably a couple of years ago. I'm not exactly sure how long. Actually, it was more than that. And I'm not sure this is going to look backwards, I guess, in the thing. The name of the book, Bill O'Reilly. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with Bill O'Reilly? No. Most people are. Bill O'Reilly wrote this book, and it's called The United States of Trump, and how the president really sees America. And like I say, I think it was written shortly after his beginning of his first term.
Okay.
And O'Reilly is known not to pull punches. He's very critical in the book, and he's fairly friendly with Trump for years. But he interviewed Trump back, like I said, a number of years ago, and they got into disagreements with some of the way Trump didn't like some of the questions that O'Reilly was asking him. But I think if and I assume, maybe incorrectly, that you haven't read this book.
I have not. I wasn't even aware of the book.
Yeah, I'm sure it's at your local library. I checked. This is my personal copy.
Okay.
But I was at the library, as I go almost every day, and I checked the library in the town I live in now, and they have it on hand as a book that somebody can take out. It's not a big book, but I think the majority of people, I think if in fact they read the book, they would come out away with a better understanding of Trump's upbringing and why he acts the way he does. And I don't necessarily agree with some of the way he acts, and neither does Bill O'Reilly. But he has, I mean, his upbringing caused some of those ways he does things. I do certain things because of the way I was brought up in some ways. I'm sure you are.
Yes.
But I think I think it would be beneficial to anybody that is especially people who are anti-Trump, if they would give him the benefit of doubt, enough so to read a book similar to this one in particular, and come away with maybe a different impression. I go back to what you said earlier about him helping to make the situation in Gaza improving. What about the things he did with Iran and blowing up and being involved in getting rid of their nuclear weapons, so to speak, and many other things as he has done over the period of time that I personally can't believe that his competitor in this last election would have had the ability, or whatever you want to call it, to have any clue to do what he has done in so many ways.
Well,
but again, my quest is to promote this book. I'm not getting paid to do it.
well, you should negotiate better.
When I bought this book at someplace at a discount back when it first came out, and I actually went to see Bill O'Reilly speak. Shortly after his book came out, he came to Malden, Mass. You had to pay about $25 to hear O'Reilly speak, but he was there in Boston because he was accompanying either one of his sons or one of his grandsons to one of the Boston area colleges. And so he would decide to spend some of his time promoting his book. So anyways, that's my spiel on that part.
Well, if somebody, when we look at some of the attacks, mass shootings that have been going on for the past 15, 20 years, in most cases, the people who are perpetuating these acts have grievances, have reasons why they did what they did. Doesn't make the act themselves any better. You might understand them a little bit better or not, but they did what they did. Trump grew up, as I understand it, I've heard a little bit about his upbringing, with a father who demanded only the best. Anything short of the best that could possibly be was a failure. And he impressed upon Donald Trump that the worst thing you can be in life is a loser. Okay.
Is it what?
A loser.
Is it what? Oh.
A loser. By the way, this information comes from Donald Trump's niece, who happens to also be a psychologist. So
who also is not the most reliable source, but
it's not clear. She's a little pissed at Trump because of the way Trump treated Donald, the way he treated Fred Jr., her father. So she may be a little bit pissed at him. But on the other hand, when she points out things, it's done with knowledge, with someone who's got not only been trained in the area, but a lot of experience. So in any case, Trump, according to her, was somebody who could never please his father, could only be tolerated if he was winning.
I didn't come away feeling after reading this book.
Well, I didn't read the book, so I can't comment.
I know.
On the book.
I'm just saying that after I read the book, and I'm on my second, almost completed my second reading of it.
Okay.
I didn't come away with that impression of what you're saying.
Well, again,
Obviously,
you know,
did you read that woman's book?
no, but I saw her speak several times.
Okay, but there's only so much that can be said at that point. Anyways, go ahead.
Okay. When he goes out of his way, and by the way, I think I understand what, particularly in the second term, what Trump is doing, because some very, very smart people sat down and tried to figure out how could they quickly create a dictatorship in America. It was called Project 2025, and they have made tremendous progress towards that. All the institutions have been demonized and have been basically the big institution, because I'm a political scientist, the bureaucracy, the people who actually do all the work in government, have been, within a couple of months, were basically turned over. Certainly the top leadership was turned over, and I don't just mean the political leadership, I mean the civil service as well. But the detail, the poor schlub who's public facing is being turned over. They're being thrown out. When they're forced to rehire, they're going through and bringing back those who are ideologically aligned with the Trump thing, and which means we're going back to the Tammany Hall. I think that I use that as an example, but this was true throughout the United States, where every person who worked for the government was subject to hire and fire by the political leadership. And the Civil Service Act was a massive reform, which essentially said you go to work for the government and you do your job and they can't fire you, because unless they can show, and they have to actually show, not just, oh, we're going to fire, which is what Trump did and Doge did. We're firing all these people and we'll write up, performance stuff so they can't get unemployment. And it turns out they didn't even know who these people were. They were just willy-nilly getting rid of them so that when they would be replaced, assuming they even wanted the function to exist, which is a different story entirely, they would be replaced with people who owed their jobs and their futures to being politically aligned with Trump and the MAGA. Yep, go.
But I guess I'd like to know where you're getting some of this information from. First off, have you read Project 25?
Bits and pieces, not all of it. No.
I have the whole thing here. All of Project 25.
Have you read it?
Do you know that? I'm sorry?
Have you read it? Because I haven't.
Yes, I have. That's why I printed it up over a year ago.
Okay.
Did you ever hear of Democracy 2025?
No.
That's done by the Democrats.
Okay.
It's data format similar to what Trump is, that the other one they're on. So it's not something, they didn't do something themselves. Do you ever hear of Molly Ball?
No.
She wrote an article. I'm a little surprised because maybe it was in the Wall Street Journal. But she wrote, and this goes back to 2024. This is the secret history, the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. She's a leftist, Molly Ball, but it's a whole article on what the Democrats are up to and so forth during 2024. So, there's all kinds of stuff out there, and it's hard to keep on top of all these different things.
By the way, 2025 My problem is not that they went and they did a think tank. My problem is what their goal was.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying. What you might know some pieces of it, but I'm not sure you're in a position to
Well,
without
in
having
the
read the
same
whole
way
thing.
as Donald Trump, when Project 2025 became public, said, I don't know anything about it. I have nothing to do with it. I've never read it. I'm not interested in it. And then hired in his cabinet the people who were writing the articles.
Yeah, I had an issue myself when I heard him what appeared to be contradicting what may have been information he knew about earlier.
Right. And again, politicians can't necessarily say everything they know for a variety of reasons, which we can talk about at another show. But when you claim certain things to be absolutely true and they aren't, as the way around it is you mealy mouth. But when you say no, wrong, absolutely, trust me on this, this is absolutely the way things are, and oh, by the way, they ain't.
That's, no, and I agree. I agree with you, Bob.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. Mm-hmm. But obviously, he's not the only one on both sides of the aisle.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, that's true. And again, it's the normalization of some of this stuff. One of the things you wanted to talk about, maybe this is a good time to bring it up, is the idea of extreme language, using words that have emotional impact in inappropriate ways.
I'm not sure. There's not the only one that I have a really, really difficult dealing with is the word hate, and because I think that just is too strong of a terminology, and people just toss it around too much. But there's so many other words that are. I forget what you just said about how you were phrasing something, but it's things when people say are describing something, then they say some people. I mean, they make it sound like everybody is doing. They use the word everybody. They always do this. You always do this. I don't always do anything. And it's the same case with never. You never help with this. I mean, I never help with this. Of course I did. It just helped you yesterday.
Right.
But these kinds of things are said in a way often that it just destroys a relationship in some ways, in my mind. And I think people need to be careful about how they use some of these, in many ways, simplistic words. They just toss them around without thinking. And I'm guilty of it sometimes myself.
Right.
But I try to catch myself. But hate is one I don't need to catch myself with. I'll bite my tongue before I say that word. And anything other than the time of addressing somebody who uses that word. And my wife knows that very well. And she is guilty sometimes of saying something like that, and she'll apologize shortly thereafter. But it's a pet peeve. Most of us have some pet peeves. The use of words is important. And I think the other words that you brought up initially, I believe, is the words like Nazi or Hitler and all these things that it seems to me that's mostly thrown around by the left, especially over the last year. And I think that provokes some people to think they can get away with things. And some of these crimes and shootings and things, I forgot how you exactly phrased it, but I think personally, I think these are people, for the most part, that are somewhat from a little bit to a lot mentally disabled. And there may be probably many reasons why they act the way they do. Everything from some birth defects to the aspect of the way they were brought up, the way they were schooled, whatever. And I believe that the authorities need to, and I have that as a topic, but we don't have time for that. But I think the authorities, when somebody does something so grievous, I believe that really proper action needs to be taken to make sure that person never has the opportunity, if it's serious enough, to injure or harm somebody else in the future. And there's been a number of different cases, even over the last couple of weeks. I wonder how they're going to treat this fellow who they just arrested, I think yesterday, who now they claim they got proof that this guy set the fire in Los Angeles. And he's saying, "Oh, I didn't do it." They got all kinds of evidence and so forth. But how are they going to treat him? Are they going to get some, quote, liberal judge that will let him off at a very easy stance? I'm so sick of seeing some of these judges let people off. This guy Diddley, whatever his name is, and I don't really know much about him at all, but most people expect him to get a much harsher sentence than he got.
Yeah.
Anyways, I got wound up a little bit. Sorry.
By the way, this liberal thing, people get away with stuff. I was listening to the news the other day while I was driving around, and when they went back and looked at all the political violence that was going on over the past 10 plus years, 5 times as many events were perpetrated by people from the right as opposed to people from the left.
I don't believe that's true.
Well,
I'd like to see evidence of that. I read that in an article, or I heard that,
okay,
and I don't believe that's true.
I don't know how to gather the information, but
I don't either. But I would. I'm going to see how they came about with that information. Well, who came up with the information?
Well, a couple of things that occur to me. There was an attempt on Donald Trump's life, unsuccessful. I'm very happy about that, because whether I like Donald Trump or not, A, murder is bad, and B, the result of him being killed would have destroyed the country. And everybody's very upset about that. The Charlie Kirk thing, everybody's very upset about that. The people who were killed in Minnesota a couple of months ago, and others who were attacked and for one way or another survived, very little conversation about that. It's a question of, it's bad, period. But if you only see one side, then you can't prevent it, because not only will your people go ahead and do it because it's okay, but they will encourage other people to fight back. And I think that is a critical event. I mean, if you look at the total number of people killed, El Paso, Texas, Buffalo, New York, Orchard Park in Buffalo, things like that, where people just opened up on migrants or African Americans or whatever because they're bad. I happen to be Jewish. When people begin to blame all of their problems on a particular group or a particular belief, even if you eliminate those people, they move on to somebody else. But number two, they stop looking and trying to manage their lives. They allow themselves to be managed by others. And democracy does not work in that environment. So when somebody says Nazi, there's a reason. What they're trying to do is to come up with a historical event that everybody recognizes and say this is how it started. And George Goebbels, no.
Yeah, that's right.
Was it George? Goebbels is the last name. I can't remember the first name. He used a lot of these techniques in order to energize the German population to get behind the strongman who was going to fix an environment that was a hell of a lot worse than we have in the United States, a hell of a lot worse. And when, for many, many years, Democrats have been called communists, and one of the things that's going on right now, the Democrats are trying to force the Republicans to reverse some things having to do with health care. They're using whatever techniques they have. Whether they'll win or not isn't clear. But why is it bad that we have Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare, etc.? Why is that bad? It's socialist, communist. That's the big problem with it. Oh, by the way, when Trump says, we will let you be in business, or we'll let you be importing or exporting stuff as long as you give the government, at least currently, some percentage of your business. That's socialism. That's fine. We don't care about that. That's okay. But letting people have health care so that they can go to work. I think that what we're saying is if you have a job, you should be able to earn enough or get health care through your company so you don't need all this government stuff. Well, the fact of the matter is most of the people who are on Medicaid have jobs. They just don't earn enough.
I believe you're making too much of this simplistic. It's much more complicated than what
I'm sure it is.
And I don't believe there's enough time to really get into covering it properly.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's something to think about. If we stopped talking and coming up and trying to show facts and trying to come up with why is it that this is what way it is. You were talking earlier about Trump being the way he is because of his upbringing. Based on what little I've learned about his upbringing from his niece, that's a tough way to be.
Almost all of us act the way we do,
right?
Because of our upbringing. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good.
And how you react to, there are people who I know who've had similar to what, again, Mary Trump has said Donald's upbringing was, who lived in households similar to that, who turned out to be a hell of a lot different than Donald did. And they're people I know personally. If everybody reacts to the situation around them in their own way, and sometimes you can understand them better knowing the environment in which they grew up, and it's not just their parents. And sometimes you don't, because they don't react the way you expect them to. Someday I'll tell you a story about what I did when I was 4 years old, and you may understand me a little bit better because I haven't changed all that much.
Okay.
I think it's a funny story, but not everybody does. But I mean, again, when the left talks about Nazis, they're attempting to explain that if you do X, Y, and Z, the likelihood is that you will get A, B, and C.
No, I think they're trying to incite those people.
Possibly.
That's my opinion.
And if the right does the same thing,
they think they're able to dump on people they don't necessarily care for or like, and they're trying to find the worst words they think that will embarrass that person or insult that person, I guess is the better word.
And some of that, I'm sure some of that is true, and I'm also sure that some of it is an honest attempt to say learn from history or repeat it.
Yeah, I think that'd be a
Whether
very
it's an
small
effective
percent.
attempt is another story. I'm not. I
I think that'd be a very small percentage of those people.
well, I know one person like that, me.
Okay, out of the out of the
Out
many
of
people
the
you know.
out of the 300 million, 330 million people we admit to in the United States, at least one is looking at it from a historical point of view, saying, and by the way, going back to Germany, again, I'm a historian and a political scientist. The Nazis were running around beating people up and destroying things, and the left, the communists, were doing somewhat similar stuff. And neither one, having won, would have been any good.
I got a question to ask you. It has
Sure.
nothing to do with anything we really
Okay.
spoke about. We only got few minutes left.
Okay.
You brought the subject up that you're Jewish.
Yes.
Uh, how do you feel about the leading candidate in New York City for the mayor?
I have
You have
I
any
haven't read
opinion on
his his
Memendini?
international views. I would like to think, and based on the fact that he's gotten a lot of support from the Jewish community in New York, that he is anti-Israel, not anti-Jewish. And I understand, again, background, I understand why people with either Palestinians themselves or sympathetic to what's going on in Palestine would attack Israel. I personally think that the problem is not Israel, but it's the rightist government. And I was very surprised that the rightist government approved the outline. By the way, they said outline, they didn't approve the plan. So it'll be interesting to see in a week or two what happens. But their professed goal is very similar to the goal of that Hamas has. The only difference is who's the winner and who's the loser. Otherwise, they're the same. They're two sides of the same coin. And based on the last couple of years of demonstrations of the population in Israel, the Jewish population in general is not extreme. And remember, before Netanyahu came in this last time, there was Arab representatives in the Israeli government. Now, they lost, and Netanyahu and the rightists came in and immediately tried to do something similar to what I claim Trump is trying to do, which is to make the executive, in this case the prime minister, all powerful. So I personally do not like the way Israel is operating today. I think it's wrong. I still believe in Israel, and I believe in the Israeli population, not necessarily its leadership. And the same thing I believe is true of the United States. I believe in general the people are live and let live. Overall, everybody has their own things they don't like. But I don't like the leadership. I don't like what the leadership is trying to turn the country into. So that's my response.
Another point for us to disagree on.
Okay. All right.
But anyways, it's been enjoyable. I'm glad we got a chance to air out some issues.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll be able to get together sometime again soon. And I can show you some stuff about January 6th.
At some point, one of the two of us will get in the car.
Most likely it'll be me.
Oh, all right.
I actually my wife and I still have our dentist in Reading.
Okay.
One of these trips that we're actually in the month of this month later on, we have a dental appointment, and I'm not sure what the date is or what the time is. So that could be a date. I'll get back to you.
Okay, and Panera is a good neutral ground.
I'm not sure if we can do a DVD, I mean, a CD in there.
Uh, if we do it on a laptop, sure.
I'm,
Otherwise,
I'm,
we go to
I'm
the
thinking,
Burlington Library.
well, that's what I'm kind of leaning towards.
Okay, well, if you,
Okay,
all right, well, it was
okay.
interesting. It was different than we've done in the past. It would have been kind of nice to get some other opinions on some of the things, but at least we got an opportunity to speak our mind.
All right. Well, have a good rest of your evening,
I shall, and
and
same to you.
we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye bye.
Good night.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Yeah. What'd you think?
Interesting topics. I mean, I feel like